Hey, everybody. This is Chris.
And Kathy.
We wanted to take a minute to thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate every listener and are grateful for this platform.
Please help us share our vision by subscribing to our show through your favorite streaming app. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at PetAbility Podcast.
Check out our ever-growing list of affiliates and sponsors. Simply go to the show notes for information and links.
And be sure to use our promo code PETPOD22, that's PETPOD 22, on checkout to receive your discount from our affiliates. And now, here's a word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Alon Landa, CEO of MedcoVet, and I'm a proud sponsor of PetAbility. We decided to partner with Chris and Kathy because, like them, we want to empower all pet owners who are trying to do the most for their pets. At MedcoVet, we specialize in advanced home laser therapy for pets. Laser therapy is a safe and effective treatment for common conditions like arthritis and wounds, and it relieves pain for most conditions caused by inflammation. With MedcoVet, pet owners can perform this treatment at home while receiving support from experienced clinicians. If you think your pet would benefit from healing at home, visit medcovet.com, and one of our clinical experts will work with you to determine if home laser therapy is the right fit for you and your pet. Tell them PetAbility sent you.
If there were to be a picture next to the word resilience in any dictionary, it should be a dog. It's an emotional resilience. It's a physical resilience. It's an ability to learn. The resilience in these dogs is one of the greatest gifts of my life.
Welcome to PetAbility. I'm your host, Kathy Simon, certified veterinary technician and certified canine rehabilitation practitioner.
And I'm your host, Chris Cranston, licensed physical therapist and small animal physical rehabilitationist.
Our podcast provides interviews and information to help your pets live their best lives.
Good morning, dear Kathy.
Good morning, Chris. How's it going over there?
Oh, it's going great. We are always excited to have our guests, right? Love interacting, love sharing with our audience. But I must say that when I discovered this organization and the guest that is about to be interviewed, I am over the moon. I've learned so much in the last couple of months, and I cannot wait to share this with our audience.
Yes, me too. Such an important topic, Chris. Why don't you enlighten our audience and tell them who we have today?
So we know, obviously, that dogs bring us such joy and comfort and companionship. But for thousands of breeding dogs in commercial puppy mills, life looks very different. So in this episode, we are welcoming Theresa Strader, the founder and executive director of National Mill Dog Rescue. Theresa founded National Mill Dog Rescue in 2007 after witnessing firsthand the suffering of breeding dogs in commercial facilities. And since then, we'll call it NMDR. They go by the acronym. Since then, NMDR has rescued and rehabilitated over 25,000 dogs, leading a nationwide effort to end puppy mill cruelty. So she is going to shed light on the hidden world of puppy mills and the extraordinary rehabilitation and rescue efforts that give these dogs a second chance. She's going to share her story that sparked this mission, the realities that the mill dogs face, and the transformational journeys from confinement to compassion. So as a listener, whether you're a pet parent, a pet professional, or simply love dogs, this is going to be a great conversation that will inspire awareness, advocacy, and action. I wanted to just share with our audience. I know, Kathy, you are privy to this, being behind the scenes, but you listeners do not know that I actually visited this organization's facility in Peyton, Colorado on November 16th, 2025. Now, how did I even know about this? Because I never knew that this niche rescue even existed. Well, it turns out that my family had gone to the facility after a big mini schnauzer rescue, and they were so impressed that they could not wait for me to see it, knowing what I do as a small animal rehabber and podcaster. I stayed for 3.5 hours because I couldn't leave. I just was really impressed, Kathy, with their can-do attitude. I mean, even leading up to my visit, I don't think they ever say no. And they were so welcoming. It was so clean. And that's what my dad and his wife had said. They'd never been to a shelter or rescue that was so clean. And it's a very modern facility that accommodates, everything that they need to do. And on that particular day, there were groups coming in. I know there was a young Girl Scout troop that was reading to the dogs. And they put these littles. There were a lot of littles at the rescue, and they'd put 2 to 5 and some X pens right behind the main entrance and lobby area. And then all these children, there must have been 30 there that day, would go and sit by these X pens and read to these dogs. It was just such a win-win. If we can get children to appreciate and understand what dogs do for us and how to interact appropriately, awesome. So as I said, there were a lot of little dogs there. I mean, super tiny, Kathy, maybe 2 pounds.
Wow. That is tiny. And you know what's interesting to me? When I went to their website, I guess I was under the misconception that puppy mill dogs are always like little dogs, but that's not true. On their website, there was a husky and an Akita. So any breed could potentially be a puppy mill dog.
Sure. Yeah. Any purebred. So when I was there was a bull mastiff, I believe, and then a mastiff Great Dane mix, if I remember right, golden retrievers, hounds. So you're so right in that. And I remembered a lot of them from watching them come off the vans. Mm-hmm. And I only recognize them by name because Theresa is incredible. As every dog comes in, she knows their name, she knows their backstory. And I was shocked because one, they had transformed physically, right? They had been groomed. But more than that, most of them seemed so well adjusted. They were already blossoming. Prior to coming to National Mill Dog Rescue, they had no reason to be joyful. So without further ado, please welcome Theresa Strader of National Mill Dog Rescue.
Welcome, Theresa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear more, Theresa. I think largely the public doesn't know what's going on at puppy mills, and I think it's going to be great to enlighten them about what's going on with these dogs and what's happening to them in their lives and their emotional lives.
Theresa, tell us the story. What inspired you? We learned before the podcast that you're a nurse by training, but how did you come to found National Mill Dog Rescue?
Well, I've been involved in animal rescue all my life. Since I was a little tiny kid, I was 5 years old when I rescued my first dog. Took it off a chain on my way back from kindergarten and brought it home. And then my father called and asked them if we could keep that dog, and they said yes. So it's always been in me to help animals in need. So I've always been involved in volunteering at shelters and things like that, and belonged to a variety of, doggy news groups. So this was in 2007. I received a 1-sentence email from a small rescue group in Ohio. And so the post, it said one sentence, 50 Italian Greyhounds in need, and a phone number. And this is a breed that I had rescued and placed many over my life, and always had great joy caring for these little crazy little dogs that they are. And I thought, holy cow, what is this about? So I called that number. And I always say that was the phone call that changed my life forever. It was the people on the other end saying, hey, this is a big commercial breeder. I'm getting all emotional. You can't see me, but because I don't
hear it in your voice.
Me too, Theresa.
Yeah, I don't think about this very often.
Yeah.
Oh.
And, I called, and it was a small Southern Ohio Sighthound Rescue or something like that. And they said, oh my gosh, we found out about this big dog auction. And it was like, dog auction? Well, again, this is almost 20 years ago. None of us knew this was going on at the time. Very few people. So, and it's a breeder going out of business, a big puppy mill going out of business. She's auctioning her entire kennel, 561 dogs.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. And 49 are Italian Greyhounds. I don't know why I'm getting like this. So basically, they told me, it's this big dog auction. If you can help, we'll take it. I said, I know Italian Greyhounds really well. I've rescued and placed many of them over my life. So I could probably take 2 or 3 of them. This is a time, by the way, when no rescues, and very few people, unless you sort of live out there, were even aware this was going on. Auction house is full of rescues nowadays, which is a whole different topic. That is not how our mission went forward. It was not by just going to the auction and getting dogs, but that's where I learned about. And at that time, in the auctions, dogs be auctioning off 500-600 dogs in a weekend. Tons of those dogs went for $1, a penny, and then a whole bunch of them went for, hundreds and thousands of dollars. But so anyway, I said, happy to help. But the issue was these people were in Ohio, and the auction is in Missouri, the number one state in the nation with the most puppy mills, or commercial breeding farms, as we prefer to call them. That's another whole topic. And I'm in Colorado. So how am I going to get the dogs that they want me to take care of? So I realized real quickly, if I'm going to be of any use to these people and these dogs, I'm going to have to just go there and drive out there and come home with whatever dogs they want me to take. 2 or 3 is what I told them. So that's what I did. A few days later, I put a bunch of crates in my little minivan and took my daughter out of school for a day, and off we went to Missouri to go attend the dog auction. And boy, let me tell you, that is a life-changing experience, particularly 18 years ago. Things have changed and gotten better over the years. But it's still very much a place where you feel the deep sense of dogs being nothing more than a commodity to these people. And, people just, all these little scared dogs on the table with people holding them there, and everybody's just hollering numbers. And, it's just, oh boy, it was haunting, devastating, really hard to watch. And I wound up coming home with 13 of those dogs.
Oh my goodness.
Great big passion to do what we wound up doing.
Must be terrifying for these little dogs to be handled like that, and with all the noise and the sights and the sounds and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
I commend you for only coming home with 13 dogs, Theresa. You come home with 500 dogs. Yeah.
I didn't understand anything about anything. I understand all of it now, but I didn't at the time.
Yeah, it's like a dark underworld that no one sees. It's this,
Right. That's very much what it is. However, what I will say is, over these 18 years, and not simply because of our efforts of a lot of groups, a lot of people, I think we're, the only group primarily, or the only group across the country that only deals with this problem.
Well, I just want to remind our audience, I think you're very humble, but in terms of my research, this was a population that prior to NMDR was not served at all. I know in my 20 plus years of working with pets, there's certainly been more awareness, and many pet store chains that are no longer selling animals, or at least not dogs and cats. And, we'll get into that a little bit later, but I want to know how you define puppy mill. And you actually said that you prefer to refer to them as
commercial breeders, commercial breeding facilities, commercial breeding farms. And the reason for that is, so I get exposed to this industry, and I'm horrified and deeply disturbed by what I see, and realize, like, oh my gosh, people don't really know about this. And this is a big problem, and people just don't know about it. Well, the rumblings, these places, but obviously all of the technology, the ability for us to connect and do all these things helped a lot of people learn a lot of things. But the reason we say commercial breeders, commercial breeding facilities, is because, one, that's what they are. They're commercial breeding farms one way or another. When you put the tag puppy mill on it, that is somebody's description of what these places are, but there's really no, what is a puppy mill? It's a place that churns out a lot of puppies. Well, what are the conditions there? All the dogs live in small cages. When you have 100 to 200 to 500 dogs that you breed, and that's what large commercial scale farms have. It used to be, and way fewer dogs that people have nowadays than 18 years ago. Every breeder I knew had 300 dogs, was a small place. 500 was average. That's way different now. Now maybe 200 dogs is a bigger place, and 40 dogs is a manageable place. But regardless, the entire thing categorizes a place as a true puppy mill, in my opinion, is what does the care look like here? It's not so much everybody's in a cage. Is anybody touching these dogs? Is anybody providing, vet care? Does anybody notice when somebody isn't feeling well? Those are the things I'm looking at. I can look past these cages and understand, if you're going to have a lot of dogs for breeding purposes, they can't just be running all over the place and whatever, and they're up off the ground. Why? Because on the ground, that's where the parasites are. So do I like seeing dogs live up off the ground on wire floor? Well, the wire floor is so that they're not living constantly in their own potty, right? So it falls through. So you see all this. No, I don't love any dog to live this way. But having done this work for this many years, nearly 20 years, you're never looking past the condition of what does this place look like? But you are looking past, are these dogs being cared for? Does this place have staff? Is there extra workers here? Any place that has workers, any place that hires even one worker, the dogs are immediately, I know right away, these people have staff. I can tell the dogs are more friendly, because when it's just a mom and pop place, old school mom and pop, and we do everything, and we have 200 dogs and it's just us. That's the old school way. And it just doesn't work. Nobody can take care of that number of dogs. Two people can't ever know that many dogs are feeling okay and, are being properly socialized and all that. So what did I do when I saw that auction? It was like, all right, well, we got to do something. I met somebody at that auction and I told her, here's my number. I'll be back. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something. This is messed up. I can't take what I'm seeing. Within 2 months, that lady called me. She herself was a breeder, but also a rescuer, a very, very incredibly interesting, difficult human who really does love animals, who really does love dogs. And she herself was a breeder. All her dogs lived in her house, 40 of them, which was disgusting, by the way. But every single one of them was happy, knew their name. And, so you see so many different things and ways that people do this. But she's the one who, 2 months after I came back from that auction, she had my number and there was a situation in Missouri. And she called me and literally said, I've got a situation just like that. And I said, oh. And meanwhile, I'm still dealing with the situation of the 13 dogs I brought back, all of whom were in such horrible condition. It was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. As I was thinking about how do you move this forward, I want to save these dogs. Everybody talks about legislation, which is critically important, of course. It's just not where my heart lie. I want my hands on these dogs. I want to get these dogs out of these places and give them a future. How do you do that?
As you're talking, my head is spinning with what the physical and emotional realities for these dogs are. And that's where my heart would lie too, getting in there and getting the dogs. And I understand the legislation, but I want to put my hands on the dogs themselves. And for the first part of my career, I worked for the Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals here in Boston. And I don't think that people realize that when these pet stores were operational, what would happen is they would ship puppies in a crate, 4 or 5 at a time, 6 to 8 weeks old, across the country. Some of those dogs didn't make it. Some of them would be dead on arrival. And then they would sit on the airport runway for someone to come and pick them up. And if they didn't pick them up, they sat there, no food, no water, in their own waste, waiting for someone from the pet store to come and pick them up off the tarmac. And it's just horrific. So I'm just, this is a really emotional topic, Theresa. And I think I might cry. I might cry a couple times during this podcast.
I always do. When I go back to the beginning of all this, I wind up in tears a lot because I very much, just the way I'm put together as a human, I very much live in the moment. Right here, right now, I live one day before and one day after today. Next week is next week. Today, we got all these problems to deal with. And it's not all these problems. There's just so much. There's so much around, so many layers to this industry, to this problem, to the solutions, the potential solutions. Yes, running out and getting the dogs, that's always what I wanted. Get the dogs out of these places. And then, now we're on the ground. We've rescued over 25,000 of these dogs and obviously made a lot of relationships along the way. And those relationships are with breeders, inspectors, both USDA and state, every kind of person you would never, law enforcement who believe in every single thing we do because we're the only people that will ever help them. It's absolutely cannot be argued that things have gotten better. And, hopefully our influence as an organization has helped. Quite frankly, I would rather hope that our influence directly with breeders has helped. That, they see there's a better way to do this. We teach, when I can, we teach different little things you can do to make life really better for that dog right there that won't cost you a penny. Stick your hand in there and touch it gently every single day. You do this for a living. These dogs give you your living. Be good to them. And being good to them is more than just feeding and watering them. It means you touch them. And when we can have those type of conversations and they learn and we get to build that relationship, we can talk about other things too. Do you really need 250 dogs here? Do you really need to use a broker in a pet store? Could you potentially make this your own business? Drop this down to 30, 40 dogs that you can actually take care of and sell directly to the public. And that's something nobody's ever said to them. They're working on a very archaic business model. You just overproduce and then the broker comes and buys some and then everybody else just whatever. Either they're collateral damage or, they're euthanized. I mean, back in the day, in the early days of this, they were killing puppies, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful baby animals left and right because they didn't sell.
And once these dogs have sort of outlived their usefulness for breeding or being consistently bred, that's it. They're euthanized.
The old school way. I mean, obviously, there's thousands and thousands of dogs living in commercial breeding farms right now.
Right.
And what do you do with these dogs when you can't breed them anymore? Between sort of 6 and 8, or unfortunately for certain breeds, poodles, Bichons, 6 and 10 or 12, they just can't keep making, especially these little bodies, they just can't keep churning out every 6 months. It's an awful lot on a little female's body to raise up a litter of puppies, and they do it every 6 months when they're in a mill. And I mean it. They every 6 months, and as soon as they either miss or they got bred and there are no puppies, no, they didn't become pregnant, or they have a 1 or 2 puppy litter, they're done. They're killed at that point. It's over. That's the end of their life. Their usefulness is over, and they're killed. I step in and go, wait a minute, that is not necessary.
We try not to anthropomorphize, our pets,
Yep.
But you can't help it. And you think about these puppies just being ripped away from them again and again and again if they have this strong maternal instinct, and oftentimes very prematurely, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and that's, not healthy at all. And I wanted to also go back to the terminology of farm. So I grew up in Iowa, so I'm a Midwest girl. And I saw the transformation of my family's farms into factory farms. And I think that's kind of analogous to what you're saying, Theresa, in that the family farm, it was their livelihood. They took care of these animals. It was a resource for food. So they were cared for, right? And, now it's these commercial feedlots and these confinements where the pigs can't even breathe. And and I think that's kind of the analogy you're making. And I also wanted to point out to people, because I don't think many people know, I told my aunt that we were going to be interviewing you, and she goes, well, who regulates this? And I said, I believe it is the USDA.
Correct. And there's an interesting tiny piece of history. You probably wouldn't know to ask this question, but of how did this start? How did all this start? Why is it all in the middle of the country? What is all that about? And I'll just give you a 2-minute synopsis. So after World War II, all of our soldiers came home. When they were in Europe, they were exposed to all these people walking down the road with these beautiful purebred animals tethered to them, sitting down at restaurants, going, this is not something that we had here. At that time in the 40s and prior, dogs that weren't living in a house and certainly not in anybody's bed. And, a lot of them were chained up or they were just farmed. We all had that. Our grandparents had dogs that never came in the house. And so all of a sudden there was this exposure to all this purebred dog ownership and these beautiful, beautiful animals. And they came home talking about it. And of course, the agricultural industry was in the toilet because we had just been through a world war. So the USDA because of this increased this interest of what is this that everybody's talking about, led to kind of a demand. Show us what this is. So the USDA, in an effort to stimulate the agricultural industry, encouraged farmers to raise a whole new crop. They subsidized it. They imported the dogs. Where did farmers didn't know anything about canine husbandry, what purebred dogs, what to look for in health, temperament. Where did they have to take care of them? Rabbit hutches, barn stalls, and that's how it started. And by the 50s, how much is that dog in the window? That was already out. And people didn't care. Well, not that they didn't care. Once you have that baby in your hand, you're really not thinking about, gee, I wonder how your mom and dad are living, or where did they come from, or you're just totally absorbed by this little creature in your hand, and they just didn't ask. And so this took off like wildfire, and that's why it's all in that part of the country, because that's where the heavy agricultural states are.
Interesting.
So the USDA basically sparked this problem, and that is why they are still licensed and inspected under the USDA, which, again, they're not agriculture, they're not livestock. Like, it probably really shouldn't be that way. But at the same time, if they weren't doing it, who would be then? No one. And so, that's just why it all is the way it is today.
Ignorance is bliss, right? We don't want to think about, even the steak on our plate. Where did that come from? So we're certainly not thinking about how that puppy got to us. Like you said, you instantly fall in love.
And that's the hard part. We perpetuate the whole thing. We see these puppies and they go, the public saying, don't buy puppy mill puppies. But when you fall in love with the puppy, you take it home, right? You take that puppy home and you don't, and then those parents start breeding more puppies, and those puppies get people. So it's a vicious cycle, because I don't want to adopt a dog from the puppy mill or from the pet store. But if I don't, then what happens to that dog? And then more dogs come and fill the
and
slot.
people do ask that question a lot of us. What would you say? We don't tell people what to do. We just try to provide information. People sometimes look at me with their head hanging down and look a certain way when they meet me or something, and I always know what they're going to say. I got a puppy and a pet store. I'm like, of course you did. People don't know. You wake up, you want a puppy. Where do you go? To the puppy store.
You go to the puppy store.
Duh. And so a lot of people just don't know. And I say, it's okay. Don't feel bad. I get it. And yes, those puppies are on the planet. They need someplace to go. But, that's when you can educate. Here's the other thing that a lot of people don't realize. Now, today, only about 5% of puppies born in mills and commercial breeding farms are sold in pet stores. It's a really low percentage. And it's not only because of the pet store bans. It's just because of internet and people getting wiser to doing their own sales rather than having a pet store take most of their profit or whatever. So, there are different ways.
And I was going to tell our listeners to give themselves some grace.
Yeah.
I've had so many people that, like you said, Theresa, sheepishly say, I just felt like I was rescuing them from the pet store. They were 4 months old, and I knew if they hadn't been purchased by that time, they were discounted, that I didn't know what was going to happen. So I bought them.
The intentions are good. And when puppies sit there unsold for a while, the options for the pet store won't euthanize the puppy. The pet store will send it back to the breeder. Now, the breeder may euthanize the puppy. If it's a breeder we work with, that'll wind up on our next list of dogs we're picking up. But, an unsold puppy. The bottom line is they're already in the store. People see them. They attach right away. They can't help it. But each time a puppy is purchased in a pet store, I hate to say it this way because I also understand not understanding. I also understand just seeing it and wanting it because you love it or whatever. But each time you do that, you're supporting that it's mom and dad are staying where they are, and that ones will come behind them. And the other thing is you really don't have any guarantee on the health of that dog. I don't care what the pet store tells you. You really don't. There's genetic things that come later on in the puppy's life that because you've never been in touch with the person who created the puppy, you don't know anything about the parents. These are things when you're going to go spend a bunch of money on a purebred dog and give it a whole long life, I would think most people would want to know. There's no question that the health and temperament of the mom and dad of a litter is going to play into who these babies are. Absolutely 100%. So
you've insinuated this, you've said this, but just drive it home that your existence at National Mill Dog Rescue now gives breeders another option. And like you said, you work with many. They can call you. You can rescue them. You can bring them in and find them loving homes versus euthanasia. And I know I saw a little video on your website, which is awesome, nmdr.org, where you said you learned very early on never to judge. Because if you pass judgment on a breeder, they're not going to work with you, right? And you need to have that relationship. And it was also emphasized that these breeders they're doing a legal voluntary surrender. There is no reason that they need to give them up to you other than trying to do the right thing.
Absolutely. And so, I answer this question a lot. So when you take a dog out of that cage, they're just going to put another dog in that cage. This is not my property. This is not my business. These are not my family members. I don't tell them what to do. I can't. I'm not the law. I'm just some nurse, right? I'm just some nurse from Colorado who said, hey, we can be a place for your dogs before you kill them. They do not have to give us their dogs. Absolutely not. And probably one of the most surprising things that people will hear from me as I realized the way to do this, because I want to help these dogs directly, my hands on these dogs, right? It's not about going to Capitol Hill for me, although I understand all those other parts are very important. This is the part that's important to me. So I want to get my hands on these dogs. How am I going to do that? Am I going to treat these people like crap? Am I going to go to one place and pick up 100 dogs and then get on the internet and say, Joe Blow is some horrible human and, these dogs were all living in hell? Or am I going to just show our work and let people decide for themselves? Because I'm not saying it about anyone. And then you can also see that a lot of times the dogs come off the truck, their tails are flying, they're happy. Yes. People comment on that all the time too, because not every breeder is exactly the same way. And to be honest, the more horrible places that we work with, we treat everyone the same way. Nobody is mistreated by anybody at our organization. No breeder, no matter how much people think we should say horrible things to them or whatever. In order to get their dogs, you have to build these relationships in a respectful way. And what happens along the way is you then get to know the humans. And when you get to know the humans, in the part of the world that I work in, the commercial breeding industry, in the part of the world that I work in, where there's a lot of poverty, this is generations of my family doing this. So in other words, these people grew up little tiny kids with these cages everywhere, and this is all they know. A lot of people might think, oh, these people are making all this money off these dogs. Well, not the people I work with. The dogs are over here in some hellhole, and the people are over here with garbage bags taped up for their windows. And it does get cold and hot in Missouri and all those states. So when you begin to grasp the human condition behind a lot of this, it changes the way you feel about the people and what they're doing even. I mean, no matter what, you're never going to like to see dogs living in cages and like that. But it changes your understanding of why this exists the way it does. When I get to know most of these people, I don't hate them at all. I actually care about them. I worry about them sometimes when it's super cold. I worry about the dogs. How crummy would it be of me to not think about those people? So it becomes a much bigger, it's not a one-dimensional thing. And for me to sit here and just say everybody that breeds animals is some piece of garbage, it's just simply not true. But now, because there's an option that never was there before, a lot of these people, some of the poorest, most filthy places I work with would never, ever euthanize their dogs ever again because there's an option.
Here. Describe the rescue process. And if you could, Theresa, I'm going to challenge you. If you could describe in general dogs that come from commercial breeding.
First one that comes to me is fearful. So when I say fearful, every level of fear from mildly like, oh gosh, who are you, to I'm going to bite your face off. Every level of fear. We see a lot of fear in these dogs. And that fear simply comes from not being socialized enough when they were young. The next problem is medical. the medical that we see in these dogs, the care they get is very basic care. You know, they get their shots and whatever, but there's nothing extra. There's no dentals, and those are very expensive. They're just not something these people even think about. And I mean, they're thinking about it more now because they're getting in trouble for it with the dentals. But the medical stuff we see on these dogs is very complicated. They have extreme, particularly the small breeds, extreme dental needs. Like, we do full mouth extractions almost every day of the week, meaning this dog is going to lose every single tooth in its head. Not because we think that's a great idea, but because every single tooth in its head is massively infected, abscess, black. You can't, you look at this, and some of them will be dripping pus. Driving the rescue truck, they'll literally be dripping pus out of their mouth into the crate. Mammary tumors, hernias from just litter after litter after litter. The little abdominal wall starts to weaken, and now we have big softball-sized hernias on a little tiny dog. Fear, medical, and then the surprising one. Ungodly resilience. Ungodly, nothing any human could ever even begin to understand, to be honest. I mean it. I mean resilience in a way that it defines the word. If there were to be a picture next to the word resilience in any dictionary, it should be a dog and nothing else. They show us their resilience. I'm not kidding. It's an emotional resilience. It's a physical resilience. It's an ability to learn. I think people always just thought, including the breeders, who's going to want these dogs? They've just been back there. They're not going to know any. Baloney. These dogs turn around like any other dog. The resilience in these dogs is one of the greatest gifts of my life.
And they make good pets ultimately.
Absolutely.
I think people might be hesitant to, if they find out their background, but they do make good pets. They can adjust.
They make phenomenal pets. Almost all of them will wind up with one or another quirk that they just are never going to get rid of, but it's also what makes them special. They house train, they learn from other dogs. That's always their best teachers, but they make phenomenal. I'm telling you, we have a private Facebook group for our adopters called Happy Tails. And what days of the week I have enough time to check Happy Tails before I go to sleep, the very first thing I do is put my box of tissues and put them right on my bed next. Because I remember where all those dogs came from. Mm-hmm. And when I see them now cherished in somebody's bed as part of a family, that's what makes this worthwhile.
I brought my dogs. I have 2 Cavaliers, and they had their wellness checkups at the vet yesterday. And I was leaving the facility and I ran into a woman with a little Chihuahua, and we started talking, and just by chance, she mentioned that her previous dog was from a mill. It was a Japanese Chin, and said that dog was the best pet she had ever had. They are resilient, that they can rise above, those emotional and physical scars.
The way a lot of people explain it to us is that they can feel their great sense of appreciation, of thankfulness, those incredible stories of the joy, the utter joy that these dogs, who once just lived monotonously in some little cage in the middle part of this country in the dark, are now bringing all this joy to people. It's just incredible. Believe me, they are not broken. They just need a little bit of help to become everything they are.
Each one gets their moment on the Facebook live feed to shine. And many of them may have one eye. Yeah. I remember the first one I watched, these dogs were so incredibly matted. And one was so matted that you said that its legs were stuck to its belly and couldn't even stand up. And Kathy and I have done shows about, the importance of grooming and how painful it is when the hair does mat. It's like, hair being pulled all the time. So kind of back to, the intake process. I know I learned on my tour that right when they come off the van, right where you're standing, Theresa, is a vet, and they have their stethoscope and they're listening to heart and lungs. And I do remember in that rescue, there was a golden where a severe murmur was detected. And you seem kind of surprised by that. But thank goodness the vet, learn that so the dog can have proper care. They check their eyes, they check their ears. Okay. Then they go back, and I learned that they all get tick and flea treatment, deworming, and then eventually go for bathing and grooming. And when I was there for that 3.5 hours, the grooming area is right up front with a window. And so people can literally see in there. And I saw 2 different Shih Tzus come in and get groomed. And one thing I wanted to point out is that you have so much volunteer help. Your vets are paid. You have behaviorists, but these groomers, I learned, are professionals that volunteer their time with you.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Incredible people. We have one staff member on our grooming team, and everyone else on that team is a volunteer. When we had a big case back in June this year, 164 schnauzers that were in the absolutely horrible, but when it was 164 of them, there were volunteer groomers. I have no idea who any of these people are. They were on our property when we arrived at 11:30 p.m. and started grooming, and they never left for I think we closed from 1 till 6 a.m. for 3 days straight. There was a man in the parking lot with a van, don't know him either, sharpening his van. He sharpens blades and scissors and knives and stuff. Came out and parked out there, volunteered his time, and spent 3 days just sharpening grooming blades all day long, sharpening the blades. And those people completely, again, I didn't even know half of them. These were volunteers from all up and down the Front Range of Colorado, volunteer groomers that came to help. And within 3 days, every ounce of that suffering was relieved by incredibly difficult work. And just a team. I mean, our volunteers, I remind people a lot, even our own staff, volunteers, this whole organization was built on the back of volunteers, period. There was no money, there was no nothing. It was just my family, and then it just grew from there. And everyone was a volunteer for years. We all had jobs. I mean, I didn't start this to, create a job for myself. I started it because the need was high. And our volunteers are absolutely everything to NMDR. The reason we're able to provide that level of care is because of what they add. Between our 2 facilities, we have 51 employees, I think. And what supports that is literally hundreds of volunteers to help support all of that care that we provide.
I mentioned early on that you were so welcoming. By the end of the day, I was sitting in these play yards with dozens of dogs running around. And if they, you were very clear, if they come to you and get on your lap, you can hold them, but, we're not chasing them around. We're not picking them up and that sort of thing. So again, you're developing trust, you're socializing them and so forth. But I think that's rare, Theresa, that folks can go to a rescue and have this interaction.
You know why? Because I volunteered in shelters all my life. I started volunteering at North Shore Animal League when I was 9 years old. Then I was a travel nurse for years. So the first thing I did when I hit the new town that I was going to be doing a travel assignment in was go sign up at the local shelter to volunteer. So I've seen a lot of shelters all over the country. I understand liability very well. And believe me, we get a lot of nippy dogs. So we have to understand liability really well. But to sort of leave the public out, the people who are coming here because they want to see your animals and maybe take one home. And I don't know. I just feel that's this openness where we don't want anybody getting bitten, and we're very careful about that. But yeah, let people come and see every single square inch of what we do every day. We're not hiding anything. There's nothing. This is the joy of sharing our mission, and I just, it's my mentality, I think, that makes it that way. It's just that I feel, show your work.
Yeah.
Share it.
You have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why else? Show the work, share it, share these dogs and their stories.
So, Theresa, what makes, ultimately, it's all about getting these pets in homes, right? So I know I added to your mantra that I saw online, but you're rescuing, rehabilitating, rehoming, and repeat, right? So that just happens over and over again. But what makes these dogs ready for adoption? What determines, that criteria?
Well, a lot of them, to be honest, once they're spayed and neutered, they're ready to go home. And then we have our sort of middle of the road, what we kind of call yellow collar dogs, where they're just very shy. They look like they might bite, or are red collar dogs who do bite. You probably saw that at our kennel, Chris, when you were there.
I did.
Dogs have on pink and blue collars for boys and girls. And then really timid dogs, and certainly any biters, they get yellow, and the biters get a red collar. And that's just so that all of us that work there and volunteer there, it's a visual reminder, don't touch this dog. It's a rehab team only dog. So it depends on what condition were they in when they got here, socially, medically, all of that. Medically, we take care of them right away. So we spay and neuter them within that first week or so of their arrival. And then socially, that's what's going to hold them up, is where are they socially? And, we have the behavior team. They are absolutely, positively amazing. I couldn't be more proud of how incredible these young people are. You've met some of them. There's no book necessarily that's going to work for, here's how you deal with a puppy mill survivor or, a breeding dog. They're all different. They're all a little bit weird, and you got to come at them with different thoughts and ideas. And these kids are just absolutely amazing. And I'm nothing more proud. I say to myself, if they ever go anywhere else to work, I hope they take this ethic with them that they learned here. Every dog gets a big, 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 big chance. We don't euthanize dogs unless they're truly suffering and it's something we've already tried, or, a million different things to fix, or they're just abjectly suffering upon arrival. We don't lose hardly any of these dogs to behavior or medical.
I think the statistic, Theresa, was on average, you adopt out into loving homes about 80 dogs a month.
Yep. About 80 dogs a month.
Incredible.
We're rescuing right now 200 to 400 dogs every month.
Wow.
And that overflow is happening only because of our partnerships. If we didn't have our partners, all those dogs would be dead. We've rescued 3,000 dogs last year, and we're going to do 3,000 again this year. That's insane for us. For all the first 15 years, it was about 1,000 to 1,200 dogs. And all of a sudden, it became 3 times that. But, we're meeting the need. So,
Theresa, how long does the rehabilitation process take for these dogs?
One of the hardest things for our dogs is pickup. They've never been picked up. Right. So they're terrified. This is where we may get bitten most often, is pickup. So the process is slow. We teach them 3 commands for these extremely fearful dogs. And wait is the first command. Wait means we have them in a yard, right? In a play yard, or you saw the play yards in the arena, Chris, or one of the yards outside. And wait means we're teaching them to understand. Wait means you got to slow down and stop. So what we do is we allow them to learn that in bigger space, and then we make the space smaller by using X pens and different things. And then at some point now they just have to learn, like, all right, I got to hunker down. These are not biting dogs. These are just very fearful dogs. So they learn, all right. So what they learn, then they learn without any extra gates or crates or doing anything. You say wait, and they learn to stop and hunker down, meaning they put their body on the ground. And, you don't like to see that. It's not normal that a dog has to acquiesce like that to be picked up or touched or anything. But with these dogs, that is what you have to do to break through. Years of never being touched or picked up is not just, okay, well, now this feels great. No, they're terrified of it. So you teach. So wait is the first command. So wait means just slow down and stop. Touch. We're going to touch you. That doesn't mean we're doing it. We're just going to touch them. So we tell them touch. Wait might take a month, depending on the dog. Now it's wait, and we're going to come over and touch. And so they're doing wait and touch for maybe a month or 6 weeks or whatever, until the dog understands. As soon as they say wait, boom, I'm going to drop down right here. They're going to come over and touch me. And then we do pickup. Pickup is hard. For some dogs, it could go on for 3 to 4 or 5 months. Some of the schnauzers that are still with us have been with us since June, because on pickup, they're not there yet. They're still going to, now with our staff, they're there, but they're still going to bite somebody they don't know, or squirm enough to jump and maybe get hurt, So it's a process that can take anywhere. Wait, touch, pickup. I can't tell you how many of our adopters that adopt those type of dogs from us that were very fearful. And they're still going to go home with some fear, right? And now they have to change everything. So they learned all this and got comfortable at our place. Now everything's going to change on these dogs. So we work with that family after the dog is home if there's any issues. But I can't tell you how many people are so grateful for those 3 commands. because the dog, by the time they go home, they know, even though it's still a shy dog and might be hiding under your bed or whatever, but when you say wait, they're going to hunker down and they know what's coming. You're going to touch them, pick them up. So I would say anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months on the behavior side. And there have been dogs we've had for as much as 2 or 3 years. As long as they're making progress, even if it's minuscule progress, even if they take a little step forward and 2 back, we know we can go that far. We're going to keep going. And believe me, for some dogs, it's a very, very long process.
As we wrap up here, just mention a few dogs and kind of why they resonated with me. You were talking about your great behaviorists, and one was out in the large dog yard when we were socializing, and there was a hound named Sky with blue eyes.
Oh yeah.
And they were trying to ferret out allergies with her. She's very social and so forth, but they thought it was chicken, took away the chicken. And then, I know the behaviorist said, we need to start documenting how many times she stops and itches. And she'd go 10 feet, stop and itch, 20 feet, stop and itch. And I just thought that was very astute and observant. So whoever, ends up with Sky in their home will know, that she has these allergies.
Yep, that she's got this. Yeah. Sky is such a great dog. And yes, sometimes it's just a matter of process of elimination. I mean, a dog doesn't deserve to die because it's allergic to chicken. That's ridiculous. So
a couple other specific dog stories. I must confess that I went there hoping to meet Prissy, and Prissy had left the facility like a day or two before because I talked my partner into Prissy.
No.
Well, we both agreed. Good for Prissy. She went home, so that was amazing.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
And then there was a little dog. I took tons of pictures and video, and I look back at them and I never got a picture or video of this little one. And you have to tell me if he's still there. So it was a male. And he would crawl up into our laps. There was a little boy that was just in love with him. And I think his name was Tough or Muff. And he's like a reddish, reddish brown. I'm going to say like Lhasa, maybe tiny little brachiocephalic.
I think he's a Lhasa Poo.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. And he can't, I didn't rescue that dog because he came from somebody within this state. So he came on they brought him to us, which is not very common, but so I don't know that little guy that much. I know who you're talking about, though.
Yes.
Yeah. When I got him, the vast majority, obviously, there's probably 2 breeders in Colorado that drive their dogs to us, which is fine. That's like, wow, we don't have to go do all the
Saves
stuff.
You resources.
But that's not many. But that dog did come from one of them.
And I keep looking on the website, and I haven't seen him, so I don't know what his status is.
If he's not on there, he's probably been adopted.
Because I've been looking since the day I left.
So,
Kathy,
yes,
you're going to be heartened because I am requesting, because you're very good at all of our socials. I'm a technophobe. Kathy, I'm a Cavalier lover. Kathy is a pug lover. And Theresa, you need to know that Kathy wrote a book called Blind Devotion based on her experience with her dog Buddha, who got sudden acquired retinal degeneration, and it's the number one book on Amazon.
Hold on. I'm trying to write the name, and I picked up 2 pens, not 1 but 2.
Giving you some kudos, Kathy.
Tell me, all right. Give me what is it again?
Kathy, tell her.
Blind Devotion, enhancing the lives of blind and visually impaired dogs.
Oh, was your pug blind?
I had 2 blind pugs because I have a some type of thing in my brain that tells me I have to adopt dogs that have disabilities. But he was my first.
Oh, well, do you need another blind pug? We have one.
I have a wild maniac pug that I adopted from the shelter, and it takes all of my energy.
all your everything.
The day that I was there, I videotaped a meet and greet and ultimate adoption with this little fawn pug female who was so friendly. I'd met her, and she went home with a halo because she had no eyes, Kathy.
Right. Yeah. The woman who invented Muffin's halo, she's very, very, very crafty, had a good concept, and has been very dedicated to the blind dog community.
Theresa, we just want to express our thanks. But one more time, just please say the website where people can get more information and learn about what they can do to help this predicament in terms of advocacy, public awareness, adoption, donating, fostering, volunteering, etc.
Absolutely. Our website is NMDR.org. That's the initials of National Mill Dog Rescue. Everything is on the website there. There's links for donate, volunteer, adopt, all the things. We need everybody's help all the time. We welcome everybody to come and visit our place anytime. If you're ever near Colorado Springs, we're 30 minutes away. Absolutely come and see us. Just like Chris did, come and see the work we do, meet our dogs. We're very, very proud of our facility and all of our staff and volunteers. It's an amazing place. So visit our website, nmdr.org, and you can learn everything you could ever want to know about us right there.
Yes. Amazing,
Theresa,
amazing work.
Thank you so much. I got emotional so many times over this podcast and thinking about the work that you do. And thank you. Thank you very much. These dogs, they deserve a chance.
Thank you. Thank you guys a million. I really, really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our show.
Follow us on social media at PetAbility Podcast.
And please check out our affiliates and sponsors.
Simply go to the show notes for information and links.
Thank you and tune in next time.